The Great Debate, District 9 candidates. VIP Vincent Whitley.
I have said it before, and I will say it here now again. There has never been more action in a 4-year period in this district than in my 4 years.
PVIM Shireen Flax Charles.
We need a tourism model that works for us and our people, not one so politically disastrous and nonsensical that our competitors are happy.
NDP Coy Levins.
How many election periods has passed and the issues are not addressed, but 6 months before election you got story to tell the people as if the people is ignorant and don't have understanding.
Independent Vernon Vanterpool. The Great Debate, Virgin Gorda, April 14, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Catholic Community Center. And Anegada, April 16, 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Emile Dunlop Community Center. The Great Debate, District 9 candidates. VIP Vincent Whitley.
I have said it before, and I will say it here now again. There has never been more action in a 4-year period in this district than in my 4 years.
PVIM Shireen Flax Charles.
We need a tourism model that works for us and our people, not one so politically disastrous and nonsensical that our competitors are happy.
NDP Coy Levins.
How many election periods has passed and the issues are not addressed, but 6 months before election you got story to tell the people as if the people is ignorant and don't have understanding.
Independent Vernon Vanterpool. The Great Debate, Virgin Gorda, April 14, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Catholic Community Center. And Anegada, April 16, 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Emile Dunlop Community Center. The Great Debate, District 9 candidates. VIP Vincent Whitley.
I have said it before, and I will say it here now again. There has never been more action in a 4-year period in this district than in my 4 years.
PVIM Shireen Flax Charles.
We need a tourism model that works for us and our people, not one so politically disastrous and nonsensical that our competitors are happy.
NDP Coy Levins.
How many election periods has passed and the issues are not addressed, but 6 months before election you got story to tell the people as if the people is ignorant and don't have understanding.
Independent Vernon Vanterpool. The Great Debate, Virgin Gorda, April 14, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Catholic Community Center. And Anegada, April 16, 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Emile Dunlop Community Center. The Great Debate, District 9 candidates. VIP Vincent Whitley.
I have said it before, and I will say it here now again. There has never been more action in a 4-year period in this district than in my 4 years.
PVIM Shireen Flax Charles.
We need a tourism model that works for us and our people, not one so politically disastrous and nonsensical that our competitors are happy.
NDP Coy Levins.
How many election periods has passed and the issues are not addressed, but 6 months before election you got story to tell the people as if the people is ignorant and don't have understanding.
Independent Vernon Vanterpool. The Great Debate, Virgin Gorda, April 14, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Catholic Community Center. And Anegada, April 16, 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Emile Dunlop Community
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the district debate. My name is Anegada, and I am a member of this year's debate planning committee, and I serve as your host for this forum. At this time, I invite Ms. Sharianne to give us a word of prayer. Let us all stand.
Bow heads, eyes. Something with the mic sleeping. Our glorious and most gracious Father, we thank you for bringing us here this evening, dear God, to hear what our able candidates have to offer for this next general election. Father, we ask you to give us good counsel, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We ask that you allow us to have respect for one another and allow each other's comments and thoughts to be given. Father, we ask that you guide and guard these proceedings. You protect everyone that's visiting today. We ask for your coverage of all our candidates who are in our audience, our debaters and visitors. Father, we are glad that you were able to bring us here safely. And at the end of these proceedings, Lord, we ask you to take us to all our various homes safely this evening. I ask that you continue to watch over us, bless Anegada, bless these proceedings, and bless the BVI as a whole. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I'll be seated. Okay, before we begin, I will start by you good? 2. Yes. Okay, as I was saying, before we begin, I would like to explain some of the ground rules that were explained to candidates before this debate. Each candidate would have 3 minutes to give their opening statements. After each opening statement, the debate begins. There will be a total of 3 rounds for the debate. In round 1, questions would have been asked or sent to each candidate ahead of time of this debate and will be asked by the moderator. Candidates will have 3 minutes to respond to each question. After responding, the moderator will then invite each candidate to provide a rebuttal if they so desire. If candidates decide to rebut, they will have 1 minute to do so. In the second round, candidates will be expected to answer questions on the spot. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. After responding, the moderator will invite candidates once again to provide a rebuttal if they so desire. If candidates choose to rebut, they will have 1 minute to do so. The final round will comprise of both questions submitted by the public via email and from the live audience. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. After responding, the moderator will again invite each candidate to provide a rebuttal if they so please. If candidates choose to rebut, they will have 1 minute to do so. At this time, cards will be distributed to the live audience. For those of you who wish to have a question asked in round 3, you will be asked to write your question on the card provided. Everybody has a card, yes? Good. After the opening statements, your cards will be collected. For each segment, the question is first asked by the moderator, and each candidate will have an opportunity to respond to that same question. The moderator simply reminds candidates of the time and moves to another question when the topic seems exhausted. For timekeeping, a bell will be rung. For each round, the first bell indicates that you have 1 minute left, candidates. Upon the second ring of the bell, it means that your time is up. For each rebuttal round, however, the bell will only be rung once, indicating that time is up. Now finally, to facilitate a smooth and civilized debate, members of the audience are required to adhere to the following guidelines. Please remain silent while candidates present his or her question and presentation. Please engage in active listening. Noisemakers such as horns, whistles, or bullhorns are strictly prohibited. Cell phones should remain off or on silent mode during the duration of the debate. Calls should not be taken during the debate. Applause is allowed only after the introduction of candidates or at the end of each segment. Now, without further ado, I will now turn things over to our great moderator for today's debate, Ms. Getoni Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Call. Pleasant good afternoon to everyone in the audience and also to our panel. May I present our first panel members to give their opening remarks, and we are going to start with you, Honorable Vincent Wheatley.
Thank you. 1, 2. Oh. Thank you, and a pleasant good afternoon to all of you. It's so good to see so many of you here today. Good afternoon to those who tuned in by radio and those on the internet all over the world. I am Vincent Wheatley, the incumbent, the person you sent to the House the last 4 years ago with the VIP government, the person who has been there with you for the last 4 years, the person you know does more than make phone calls and do phone calls, the person who's there for you in tangible, real tangible ways. Today I want to commend the committee once more for putting on this debate here in Anegada, and I'm glad it took my advice because I suggested that it be held here in Anegada. All too often Anegada is being left out. So I'm so pleased to see you took my advice and brought the debate to the wonderful people of Anegada. Today I want you to listen to the questions, but more importantly, listen to the answers. We're going to present ourselves in a way that hopefully you'll see the distinguishing characteristics between us so you can better judge when you go to the polls on the 20th and the 24th, which candidate, along with the candidate's team, platform most aligns with your dreams and your aspirations for you, your family, and this country, and to see which team up here can deliver that for you. You see differences in knowledge, experience, and conduct. As we have 4 different personalities, we bring 4 different styles. See which one best aligns with yours, and see which team can come together to fulfill your dreams and your aspirations. Again, welcome to all and good afternoon.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. At this point in time, we are going to invite Honorable Flats Charles to give her opening remarks.
Good afternoon, Anegada. It's so good to be here again in less than 24 hours. If I can recall, in January, on average, I have been in Anegada 4 times. February, the same. March, 3 times at the least. And in April, just about 4 times. For the past 24 years, Anegadians have seen me on a regular. Anegadians have walked with me through thick and thin. Anegadians understand that I am here for them. Anegadians know that when I get off of that ferry, in the roughest of weather, and the wind is literally blowing you westward, and you ask me the question, you rarely come over here in this weather, it is because I love you. It is because I care about you. It is because I want to see better for Anegadians. I live on a sister island too, and I understand the plight of living on a sister island. I have been here when there were emergencies, and instead of going about my business, I go to the clinic to assist in any way that I can. I am about youth empowerment, equity in the distribution of crown lands, fixing the healthcare system, having a business-friendly environment, and reform of the public service and governance. And I want to go back to crown lands, and I want to applaud and give kudos to the Anegada Lands Committee under the leadership of Chairman Rowan, who has done a fantastic job at ensuring that this century-plus-year issue is dealt with. I want to say to you, the Progressive Virgin Islands movement team is dedicated to the people of Anegada. And that is shown in the times that I come here. I call you on a regular, I visit you on a regular, and that is important to get things done in our territory and Anegada specifically. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Albert Charles Flatt. I will now invite Mr. Evans to give his opening remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, the panel, to our online platform, pleasant good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be in Anegada this afternoon, to sit down amongst my constituents, I would say, and be able to engage in a discussion. The objective of the discussion is to be able to get the best solution to plot the way forward for our island. Today, I want you to know that we as Anegadians are at a crossroads in our country. The decision that you make should not be entertained by emotion, but should be entertained based on who have the best way forward for our country to go. I would always reiterate, it is not about what a government official or a government could do for you, but it is the opportunities that are created in order for us to propel our country in the right direction. I run with the National Democratic Party, and our slogan is a vision. The objective is to provide a realistic vision for the people to be able to see, and for us to take the people on a mission, because no man is an island alone. And the objective is to get a solution that is practical, a solution that you, the people, will work with us to be able to achieve what it is that we need us to achieve. So today, as we debate with love, and we debate for our country. But as we go forward today, I just want you guys to know that we are in Anegada, and this is our first debate. And to those that put it together, I say thank you, because it shows that we are about to raise the standard in Anegada. So I bid everyone a good afternoon, and I hope that all of us have a very good debate.
Okay, at this point of time, we are going to ask Mr. Vanterpool to give his opening remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Pleasant good afternoon to Honorable Vincent Weekly, Honorable Shireen Charles, Mr. Coy Levons, and the listening audience. I would like to recognize two of our at-large independent candidates in our audience here today, Karen Vanterpool and Missy. Welcome. I am here again today to keep it real. keep it direct to the point. Anegadians, for the last 12 years, we put in party after party, and they continue to nip on the fabrics of our society piece by piece. We are now waiting for the undertaker to arrive to the burial ground to throw dirt on the carcass. Be one. Don't be fooled this time. No party has gotten you there before, and they will not get you there now. I am your independent candidate. My symbol is the crown. Go out in your numbers, cast your X, put the shade in that oval box next to that crown, and after the 24th, we will sit down as a people and chart our course forward where we have need to been 20 years ago. I thank you. Have a pleasant good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Vanterpool. Okay, you must forgive the brief delay in our session just now. Anegada is quite hot, and I'm afraid that our panel is actually feeling the onslaught of the heat of Anegada. However, I'm sorry we don't have any control over the weather today. Nevertheless, we are pleased that you are able to come and discuss with us despite the weather and its impact on you. We will have our first round of questions. At this point of time, the questions are going to be 3 minutes. After 2 minutes, you will receive a warning bell, and then we'll be followed by another bell. At the end of that bell, we are asking that you complete your question with the sentence, and we kindly move on. If at any point in time you overstay in terms of you go over the time limit, you're at liability of losing your next response in terms of the rebuttal. So we're asking that you adhere to the time limit. Okay. All right. So the first question will go to Mr. Vanterpool. And the question is, the ravages of Hurricane Irma and Maria are still evident in our communities. How do you propose helping the 9th District and by extension the Virgin Islands to rebuild? I will repeat that question. The ravages of Hurricanes Irma and Maria are still evident in our communities. How do you propose helping the 9th District and by extension the Virgin Islands to rebuild?
Good afternoon once again. The Hurricane Irma and Maria, September will make it 6 years. We are now coming in 6 years too late for the recovery. This is something should have already been done. I will seek loans from the Social Security Board to get immediate action to the recovery of our islands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanterpool. Mr. Levens, the same question to you. Do you need me to repeat it? The ravages of Hurricanes Irma and Maria are still evident in our communities. How do you propose helping the 9th District and by extension the Virgin Islands to rebuild?
Testing. Currently, the government have a housing recovery program in place. So I think what we need to do for us is we need to commit to the program, and we need to extend the program so that the program would be able to have the funding to be able to help individuals who have gone through devastation. I think the key objective is for us to be able to prioritize children and women, to be able to set up homes. But in order for us to facilitate this process, government have to commit the funds, because in most cases what you have in the Virgin Islands is you have a lot of frameworks in place, but you don't have the funding and the commitment by the officials as to be able to see the funding. The other thing that we could look at too is access to capital. We need to have a discussion with the Development Bank and see how they could facilitate the small businesses and help us in the time of need. And I think that that is the direction that we need to go. It is our bank, and we need to foster that relationship to be able to leverage the money to help the local individuals. And on a broader scale, we need to look at expanding our economy. There's a lot of investors in the BVI that are willing to partner with us to help us, but we just have to provide a way and means and incentives for them. Incentives could be in the sense of quick immigration processes. People have money, and people would love to invest in a public partner private, whether it is us, the locals partnering with them, or if it's government partnering with them. But the key objective is for us to be able to have the funding made available to the residents of the British Virgin Islands, and specifically Anegadians, for when we have these hurricanes that affect us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Levans. Honorable Flatz George, the question is, the ravages of Hurricanes Irma and Maria are still evident in our communities. How do you propose helping the 9th District and by extension the Virgin Islands to rebuild?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I will say that we started that process in 2017. In November, if Anegadians recall, after much fighting and pulling and hauling with the then government, we at the Tourist Board were able to pull off the biggest lobster fest ever. We had a lot of opposition, but we realized that Anegada, luckily for all of us in the BVI, did not get the greatest hit. That was the start of what was planned to help us rebuild the territory. Now I will go to the recovery unit within the Ministry of Health. I've spoken on many an occasion up to last week with Mr. Massacott, who has assured us that there are quite a few applications still in, and those are already being dealt with for this coming year. There may be persons who did not apply that still need to apply to see if they can get some assistance. I also want to say to the audience here today that the Recovery Development Agency, under the able leadership of the chairman of the PVIM, Mr. Ronnie Skelton, has worked diligently in the recovery process. Rebuilding a territory that was 80% destroyed is very difficult. How do we propose to fix it? All of us working together, the banks, and for those persons who were displaced, there were many persons who were living in homes. When the hurricane came, the homes didn't belong to them. It's ancestral lands and homes, and they could not get permission to rebuild. What has to happen now is the plan that the PVIM team has. Those persons need to be put in a position where we build housing through a development plan. We have a plan. You can build 8 homes on an acre of land. We have developers in place, we have contractors in place, we have spoken with the banks already. You don't even have to go to an architect because we have 4 or 5 different floor plans that those persons can choose from. And it is affordable housing that we're talking about. So those are some of the areas. Business is another area where we need to inventory businesses that have not recovered and put plans in place to make it easier for them to conduct business. For instance, you don't have a storefront, you have to be able to go online. After all, it's 2023 and technology rules the world.
Thank you, Honorable Flats Charles. Honorable Wheatley, the question is, the ravages of Hurricanes Irma and Maria are still evident in our communities. How do you propose helping the 9th District and by extension the Virgin Islands to rebuild?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'll continue what we started as a VIP government in 2019 to provide further funding to fund repairs and rebuilds where necessary. We took some money from Social Security to ensure that more houses receive some kind of funding, in some cases, for full rebuilds. We had one here in Anegada. Secondly, we have to expect stronger and more frequent hurricanes as climate change is real. So we have to improve and upgrade our building codes. That too was done. So when hurricanes come again, the houses are a little more resilient to hurricanes, to bad weather. Third, we have to build strong economies so persons can make the money to also work along with government. And that's going to happen through insurance. We have to make insurance more affordable. A lot of persons didn't have insurance because they simply couldn't afford insurance. Therefore, their houses are fully destroyed with absolutely no insurance. Then we need financial workshops to make sure persons are able to handle the money that they do make. Then, barring that, if you can't find the money locally, we have to go through agencies such as the EU, maybe CDB or even the World Bank, and work through the RDA like we have done to make sure we are partnering with the persons who have lost their homes. I know many persons who are still rebuilding their homes because they had no insurance. We have to tackle this head on and make insurance affordable for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. And that ends the first question in the first round. The second question, we will start with you, Mr. Levens. Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies. At this point in time, we're going to ask the panel to give their rebuttals. 1 minute is allocated to each panelist.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think what's important to understand is that we need to educate not only Anegadians, but all BV Islanders on the process of insurance. I believe what happened after Hurricane Irma and Maria, lots of persons who had fortunately paid off their mortgage decided not to insure their homes, because once you have a mortgage with the bank makes it mandatory that you have insurance. So we have to ensure that our population is educated as to how insurance works and the importance of having insurance. Affordable insurance, yes, is important, but persons did not insure because they had already paid off their mortgage, and kudos to them. But in a disaster such as Irma and Maria, we saw the benefit of having insurance, and education is key to that.
I think the problem here is the commitment of funding to be able to assist, irrespective of what the agency is. As Honorable Charles mentioned, the RDA. But the way the RDA works is you have to write a statement of requirement and you have to provide the funding. All the RDA does is facilitate the building process. So whenever you look at what it is we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to achieve is we're trying to ensure that we have money made available for the sake of recovery. The insurance idea is good, but then you would have to mandate across the BVI insurance for everybody. But remember this, the insurance companies are done aware of the level of vulnerability, and insurance companies deal in a risk-based assessment. So remember, an insurance ain't gonna cover you if they feel the risk is too high. And if they do cover you, you end back up in the same problem, not having enough money to pay the insurance.
I think we first have to make a comprehensive study to the final cent. Then we can move forward with this recovery. Thank you.
What we have done as a VIP government, we have bought the territory insurance. when we got in there, they had relapsed. We had insurance for the country, we had relapsed. I think it was $20 million. Had we had the insurance during Hurricane Irma, we would have received $20 million immediately. We since reinstated that country insurance and increased it, I think, to either 70 or 80 million. They'll be readily accessible so the country goes through something like what happened in actually the name of the insurance, it escapes me now. But we do have a national insurance that covers the territory for things like earthquake, particularly earthquakes, because we are due for one. They're due every 100 years. The last one was in 1867. We're due for one now, which is why we had a foresight to buy particularly earthquake insurance for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, panels. Liz. Okay, at this point of time, we'll move on to question 2. Mr. Levins, the question is, education is vitally important to a growing nation. What would you do as the 9th District representative to advance education in the Virgin Islands?
Well, education is the building block of any society. So one of the first things that we need to put in place is the hardware. And the hardware is the teachers. And when I say put them in place, while they are in place, one of the biggest problems you have is proper compensation for the people that teach your children. And that is a problem in this country. You cannot pay the people who is about to set the future for the whole entire BVI wages that is very difficult for them to afford to live. Secondly, we need to look at the curriculum, and we need to start to structure the curriculum to suit the industries that we have in our territory. So for example, we as a financial service and a tourism economy, right? So what we need to do is we need to integrate that into our curriculum. And integration meaning that even if you have basic subjects as maths, English, and science, you need to start to get the children geared up to do an apprenticeship from in Farm 3 and allow that apprenticeship to carry them all the way up to Farm 5. Because when you finish, you would have produced a child who have graduated with experience. You would have produced a child that could go into a college and have the proper experience to be able to understand the subject matter. And the other thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that there's equal education across the board. What is in Tatola must be reflected in Anegada, Van Dyke, and in Virgin Gorda. We need to bring the curriculum up to speed because you can't offer some children some and others some. So I think that, and another thing I want us to look at is the social impact. We need to start to put social workers in place. There is a lot of single parents and children that are going through struggle that we don't know nothing about. And a lot of the behavior, you see, they play it out in school. So we need to look at guidance counselors to be able to guide the youths them. Because if it's about the youths them, then we have to put the mechanism in place to support the youths them.
I'm going to ask the audience to refrain from applauding until the sections are finished. Thank you. Honorable Flatstars, your question is, education is vitally important to a growing nation. What will you do as a 9th District representative to advance education in the Virgin Islands?
Thank you so much. Civics is very important. If you don't know where you came from, you won't know where you're going. And our children need to understand the history of the Virgin Islands. It is lacking in our school system. One of the other things, we need more frequent visits from those responsible for education so that they understand the needs of the Anegada community. On one of my last visits, there was a mold remediation specialist on the island at the school. I'm not an expert, but I could see the mold myself. And in my investigation, a study was already done and a report made with no follow-up from the relative authorities. Do they care about the students on Anegada? Do they care about the students on Virgin Gorda? Counselors do come to the school here at Anegada, but once or twice a week is not enough. I've had the unfortunate opportunity to have to get involved where there was need for counselors and was able to bring the chaplaincy organization, which is a group of pastors, to Anegada to assist in counseling students, parents, etc. There must be equality across the board. We need curriculum reform. How are we going to achieve this? We cannot achieve it by just sitting around and complaining. We have to demand that it happens. Now, I'm not bashing anyone, but our teachers need to be paid well. Our teachers work very hard under circumstances that are not the best. As a member of the House of Assembly, I have written, I have called. On numerous occasions, I visit the school on a regular. There are open-faced air conditions with fans spinning. A young child can get their hand caught in that. And we know the situation with medical evacuation. I had to reach out on more than one occasion to the ministry, to the department, to no avail. Sometimes, yes, Anegada might be a little farther away from everything else, but it is their job to show up here and do the work that they're being paid for, albeit it might not be the amount that they want. Thank you.
Honorable Wheatley, the question is, education is vitally important to a growing nation. What would you do as the 9th District representative to advance education in the Virgin Islands?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. It's a very loaded question, but I'll try and get through it in 3 minutes. As a former educator, we have to look at the 3 components of education, which is the ministry and department, the parents, and the child. The ministry must continue, because it currently happens. It was a VIP government who introduced scholarships and increased them from where they were to where they are today. So we must continue to offer and seek and promote educational opportunities for our children. For example, the Asia Abroad scholarships. There are also numerous Commonwealth scholarships available. We must continue to promote these to the community. Most persons, they even don't know all the scholarships that are available to them, that they can go and take up things. The second one is the parent. And the parent has to be better oriented to work with the schools. I've said it before. The parents and the schools must work for the benefit of the children. Parents are often distracted and working 3 and 4 jobs, and sometimes don't even know how to best assist their child. Parents must support a child. We must provide support for the parent that they could support their child. Now I'll come down to the teacher before we go on to the student. Yes, it's easy to say pay them more money and you will get better results. That's a fallacy. You could pay teachers $1 million each a month and they will still find reasons not to do what they're doing. We need committed teachers who understand the area they're working in. Yes, it can be improved from where it is, but just throwing money at a problem doesn't solve it. We need a firm commitment and dedicated teachers like we used to have before. Here in Anegada, Virgin Islands, all throughout the BVI. And because we are a nation of islands, we have to embrace technology and get online stuff where persons physically cannot be there. The college is currently doing it. We need to move from tertiary and bring online classes down to lower level. There's no reason why certain subjects are not taught in Anegada. They can be brought to Anegada. And then the children. We have to look at the curriculum in terms of meeting children where they are. Every single child will not be a doctor or a lawyer. At the same time, we cannot teach every single thing in schools. And here's where the parent comes in. And here's where the curriculum needs to be identified. Now, a while it was asserted that children must be trained to go to university. Some children must be trained to go to work. Some must be trained to go into trade. And some must be trained to go to higher education. Those 3 things cannot all be met at the same time in any curriculum. It will not happen. We have to prioritize what the country needs at that time. And that happens now, but it changes every year. The government sets up priorities every single year as to where the education scholarships should go to. That changes every year based on our needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. Mr. Vanderpool, the question goes to you. Education is vitally important to a growing nation. What would you do as the 9th District Representative to advance education in the Virgin Islands?
Education is the cornerstone of any developing nation. Our schools need extensive reading programs, training with certification up to our college levels. Our schools, we have problems where our children, even up to high school standards, still cannot read as a 5-year-old reading. That's our problem. We need to start with that type of programs before we could think about anything else. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. At this point of time, we will open the panel for a rebuttal, 1 minute each. Mr. Wheatley.
I will just say this. Education must be seen as every single one's business in this territory. We oftentimes just point fingers at the schools, or point fingers at the parents, or point fingers at the government. Education must be seen as every single person's business, and everybody has a place, a part to play in the future. The children are our futures in our territorial song. Education is a golden key. We must get to a point where we take that seriously and literally if you're going to save this country and make it sustainable. Thank you.
Mr. Vincent, on the point of the education promotion, I like how you articulate it, but it is the VIP government that cut the CXC programs that cause now the parents to be able to pay the money. So when we talk about commitment, make sure that we're committing and that we ain't just using words of fallacy to tell people. Remember that. It is the VIP government that cut $45,000 a year out of the budget and don't pay for your CXC. And I am rebuking your situation on the compensation for teachers, my brother. Let me tell you something in this country. It is the teachers that sometimes have to do the job of the parent and still turn around and be a teacher. Why? Because we are living in a society where you have a lot of strain on teachers. You have to look at the environment in which you're operating in. You're operating in an environment where you have single parents, where you have men failing to play the role as men, and women have to hold on to 2 and 3 jobs to be able to carry the strain and the load and are not in a position to take care of the children. So we as a system have to be able to facilitate that process.
At this point of time, we are going to invite Ms. Charles Flats, if you want to give a rebuttal.
Thank you. The PVIM government is committed to returning the scholarship program for the valedictorian and the salutatorian. These young people work hard to compete to get that scholarship at the end of high school, and it must be returned. What I would like to do now is to have some audience participation. All of the teachers in this room, I want you to stand. I know there are teachers in the room. Please stand up. Please stand up. How many of you are not committed and dedicated? Sit down. Okay, so I know it. I walk with you. I see you on a daily. And I know that you are dedicated and committed and deserve to be paid for what you do.
Thank you very much. We are approaching round 3.
Or could you do
Question
that?
3, I'm sorry.
How
And,
can you do that? I have not had my opportunity to rebut. Thank you. Anyhow,
My apologies.
I am proud to say that I am a product of a society where our teachers, they take up the role of the parents. We spend at least 8 hours in that school with those teachers. And if, what my brother Coy said, if the teachers are doing that, I applaud you. But from my opinion, I don't see it happening. We have to take responsible, all of us. When we send our children to school, you are responsible for them till when they reach home back in our houses. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Honorable Flats Charles, the third question, we'll start with you. It has been suggested that the 9th district should own its own budget and a council to administer such. What are your feelings on this?
I don't believe that is the question that I got from the committee, because I believe the question said something only about Virgin Gorda. It did not say anything about the 9th district, and so I was perturbed to think that we would be asking a question about Virgin Gorda at a debate in Anegada while we are all one. The question was changed to suit. We continue to change the rules as we go along. However, Anegada must have their own island administration or district council. So does Virgin Gorda. So does all of the other districts, including our sister island of Jahphix. We need our own budget. I will use the example of 2 properties in Virgin Gorda that have paid into the government coffers in hotel accommodation tax alone $2.6 million in 2022. Now tell me, have we seen any of that money in the 9th district? Albeit for maybe 1 or 2 poorly engineered roads. We have not seen what happens with our money. We pay taxes. The Ministry of Communication and Works in December laid out a 21 project plan for 2023. Please tell me how many of those projects were in the 9th district. I'm asking you, the audience, to take a wild guess. Can anyone say? Thank you, and you are so correct. 0 projects, and that was read out in the House of Assembly. 20 in Tortola, 1 on Jahphix. And while we are now in a flurry trying to do different little things throughout the territory, it is appreciated, but why are we now rushing at the 11th hour to do such? An island administration will solve that problem. Let's look at that Nevis model, and the PVIM government is committed and dedicated to working with you to ensure that that happens starting on April 25th.
Thank you, Honorable Flats Charles. Honorable Wheatley, your question is, it has been suggested that the 9th district should have its own budget and a council to administer such. What are your feelings on this?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I might have been the one who actually suggested that, so I think it's an excellent idea. It used to be that way before, where we had particular departments with line items in the 9th district, such as public works, and I think maybe health also might have had a budget. Now, the Island Council sounds like a very good idea, but it needs to be carefully thought out that you don't add another layer of bureaucracy to what you already have. That would be my only concern with an island council. But if it's properly thought out and may cover some other restructuring, it might actually make services more readily available and things might happen more efficiently. The example I had was with Public Works. They used to be something like $500,000, or was Deputy Governor's Office, sorry. They had $500,000 that were used to maintain some buildings in Virgin Gorda. Whenever something needed to be done, we got together and we were able to decide right there and then how to do it. It says specifically Virgin Gorda. It was removed some years back and was given to Public Works on Tortola. When you wanted something done, it then was right to Tortola and then see if they have the money there, because once it goes to Tortola, then they can spend it, and most of the time they did. You don't want the Island Council to be replacing Tortola. So the Island Council idea is not a bad idea, but we have to make sure it's not adding another layer of bureaucracy that currently exists. To me, what a council should do, because you have a manifesto, we should be the people's wish, the person elect a government on. They should have the priorities. However, after election, you might find there isn't money to do everything you campaign on. The Island Council may be the best place to prioritize those 10 things that you can do out of the 100 that you propose. So once, I said the idea is not a bad idea, once it doesn't become another layer of bureaucracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. Mr. Vanterpool, the question is, it has been suggested that the 9th district should have its own budget and a council to administer this. What are your feelings on this?
Like Honorable Ms. Giles pointed out, the question I got was also pertaining to Virgin Gorda. And my response to that will be, this question is very biased in my opinion. It seeks to separate the two islands, one district concept. However, if that is the wishes of the people, I am for it, because we have an example here in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. Tobago has its own House of Assembly, which look out for the affairs for the island of Tobago. I thank you.
A bit of housekeeping. I understand from the panel that your question stated Virgin Gorda and not the 9th district. Nevertheless, for the purpose of this discussion, the question I received to give to you was the 9th district. As Virgin Gorda is a part of the 9th district, as well as Anegada, I see nothing wrong with the question as it stands.
Madam Moderator, the question was right.
And I'm asking you.
The question was asked correctly. If you all read the terms, you would have seen that.
Question.
Let me answer the question for you, okay. Madam Moderator.
Thank you.
The district council idea is a wonderful idea, ladies and gentlemen, because you know why? The district council idea allows Anegadians, and by extension Virgin Gardens with their own separate council, to set the strategical directive of your country. The issue that you have is that you have politicians that are not from a particular district. So I would be from Anegada, but not from Virgin Gorda, and the two incumbents would be from Virgin Gorda, not from Anegada. But in order to set a strategical directive, you want to put a collective effort together within each particular district. So look at Anegada Lands Committee. You expand the Anegada Lands Committee to include some of the businesses. Y'all sit down together and y'all map out the direction. And considering that the district council is something new, I agree with Honorable Vincent, you have to be careful it doesn't add a layer of bureaucracy. But that wouldn't be an issue, because what would happen is you would create a line item in the national budget to speak to the works of the district council. But most importantly, it will allow Anegadians to position Anegada in the direction that they wanted to go, and send the minister down the road to go talk thing on behalf of Anegada. So the district council is a very good idea in order for us to position Anegada, because in order for us to get our own representative, we would have to go through a constitution. We'll have to redo the borders as to be able to include the various districts. And that challenge is going to be difficult, because as much as it sounds good, you got to go to the UK and you got to defend your point. And in defending your point, it would be quite difficult to separate them right now. But at least if you could demonstrate some level of self-determination in terms of being able to govern yourself and have a representative in the house to represent you. The council is a wonderful idea, and the council put the power in the hands of the people and take it away from the official so y'all could set y'all direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. At this point in time, I'm going to invite the panel to make their rebuttals.
1 minute, right?
That's correct, 1 minute.
Just to correct one thing, the rebundling exercise was done already because this was started back in the Land Constitutional Review. So the rebundling was done already. So the matter of just going to the next step of making a constitutional change. And I'm so glad personally recognizing the Anegada Lands Committee that I put together and I resurrect because there was none when I got into office. The office itself was against that committee being put together, but I saw the wisdom of it and I saw where it could go to where this question is now a relevant question because the Anegada Lands Committee can serve as a model for what district council actually can become. Thank you.
I just have a quick question, Mr. Weekly. When was the district reboundary done? Because that is much more than just drawing a line, you know. So unless the process takes place, I stand to be corrected. But could you help me to undertake and to understand at what point that the government, whoever it is, have actually segregated the different boundaries of Jahphix and Anegada?
I can't recall exactly how far it actually got because we didn't going to create. Oh, sorry.
I am sorry, Mr. Wheatley. You allow 1 minute to rebut, and you've already done that. Mr. Levens, you can still continue. Thank you. Mr. Vanderpool? Ms. Flash?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The suggestion of a district council or island administration has been bandied about for decades. I believe even before any of us on this stage was born. It was not the single idea from one person, but all persons in the territory over the many decades have been asking for a district council, even those persons who live on Tortola, while the sister islands feel very neglected at times. Many districts also in Tortola have been asking for it. And why would there be more bureaucracy? We have been asking for less bureaucracy, and we as a people will ensure through the correct process that when the island councils are formed, that things are efficient and expeditious. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Flats Charles. At this point in time, we are going to come to round 2. These questions are questions which were not prepared. If at any time you need me to repeat the question, please let me know. Mr. Wheatley, you will be taking the lead on this question. The first question is, the Nurse Romelia Smith Clinic is still without a resident doctor, nor are there any dentists on Anegada. How do you plan to address this situation? I will repeat. The Nurse Romelia Smith Clinic is still without a resident doctor, nor are there any dentists on Anegada. How do you plan to address this situation?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Both circumstances are very unfortunate. And I can guarantee you there's no reason why there should not be a doctor here at least 6 days a week. When you send me back to the House of Assembly, I would ensure that there's a doctor here immediately in April or early May, at least 6 days a week. The 4 you currently have should be Monday, Sunday, Saturday, Friday. There's no reason you can't have at least a Wednesday added in there, so that'd be at least 5 days. That can be done right now. The dentist is also very unfortunate, and I must commend Nurse Romelia herself for leading the charge and trying to get a dentist chair acquired. I was told just last week that most of the money has been raised. If I gotta use my own money, I will make sure, because you're paying insurance like everybody else, but not receiving the benefit of a dental care at Anegada that you're being paid for. And that is very unfair to the Anegada people. I would ensure that that dental chair is in there in May of this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. Mr. Vanterpool, the question is directed to you. The Nurse Romelia Smith Clinic is still without a resident doctor, nor are there any dentists on Anegada. How do you plan to address this situation?
I plan to address this situation by removing a doctor from wherever it is, Tatola or Virgin Gorda, have them present in our clinic. Secondly, I will make sure while that is going on, we have doctors and nurses overseas studying to come back home to serve us here. We have a problem, this one don't want to come here and that one don't want to come here. But if you're hired, wherever the medical fertility send you, I think you should go, or else you need to go home and relax. But I will make sure, because I am a sufferer, and I will make sure that we get, whether young, middle age, to go and study to be a doctor and a dentist so we can have our own people here. And when I say that, I'm serious about it. It will not be like how we send them off to school before and they remain in the US and the UK and don't return. I will find them because that is our taxpayers' dollars, and they have to have respect for that. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanterpool. Mr. Levens, the question is, the Nurse Romelia Smith Clinic is still without a resident doctor, nor are there any dentists on Anegada. How do you plan to address this situation?
That's a good question, Madam Moderator, and I'm going to tell you why it's a good question, because a lot of times we could just say we put a doctor here and we put a dentist here, but let me teach you about scalability and common sense. If you have competent nurses in place, as we do in Anegada, then all we have to do is put the doctor into rotation when the doctor is needed. It's not to say that Anegada don't need a doctor, but we have to be practical in the things that we do. You can't bring a dentist and put him up in a building and individuals only seeing the dentist once every 2 weeks. The best thing for us to do, based on how we organize, is for us to be able to take the appointments and set up the facility so that the dentist could come and he could spend a couple days and deal with the people of Anegada, and if there's anything, he go back up. But to strengthen us in terms of our doctor, you know what we really need to put in place? We need to get the airlift fixed, because that would mitigate the risk. In the event that the nurse make a phone call, then the nurse could say, listen, that plane need to be able to come in here and go. Because I got to tell you this, if you don't have the facilities in Anegada and have the doctor, but the doctor don't have the tools to undertake the task, the plane ain't still got to come and move the passenger. So the problem is a much greater problem. The problem is putting the Medivac in place to be able to facilitate the transport of the passenger. But you could bring a doctor and you could put him up there. You have an ICU. You have the tools in place to be able. So sometimes things that sound good on the surface, but you got to go down and dig down in it to make sure that it makes sense. The current system, if it's working, work the system. However, if the nurse feel that it's too burdensome, increase capacity so that we could take the burden off. But Anegada needs medical care. But we have to be practical in the administration of things. That's why governments has promised and they can't deliver, because they just over-promise and tell all a bunch of over-ambitious things that don't make no sense. This is about scalability, and this is about common sense approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. Honorable Flatstraws, the question is, the Nurse Romelia Smith Clinic is still without a resident doctor, nor are there any dentists on Anegada. How do you plan to address this situation?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I know personally of several doctors that have requested to be moved to Anegada full-time. And when I say full-time, not 6 days a week. What happens on that 7th day if you have an emergency? Our nurses are very capable, but just as Virgin Gorda has doctors 7 days a week and into the night, so should Anegada. I've written, I've called, I've prodded, I've done everything with the ministers for the portfolio of health. I do not believe the will is there of who makes the decisions and who signs. Funds must be reallocated because the dentists will need modern equipment. We have to schedule dental clinics until the population gets to the size where you need to have a dentist on a regular basis. Pay is another issue. We can also institute a program for retired doctors from overseas. But the accommodations for the doctors and nurses need to be comfortable. I know of situations where you have a doctor coming over to stay, the refrigerator isn't working, the AC isn't working. We have to make our medical personnel comfortable. We have lots of persons overseas from the BVI, but you cannot pay them $30,000 to come home when they're making $150,000 in New York. So we have to compensate our people. I don't know why it is that we seem to have a problem with compensating our own people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Flats Charles. At this point in time, we will open the floor for rebuttals.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I will just say, because we often we know what the problems are, but we don't often have the path to the solution. Well, let me explain to you what the path to the solution is. The path to the solution of the Romania Clinic lies with the chairman of the BVI Health Services Authority and his board. These are the people legally charged to deliver health services to the people of the BVI, and Anegada is an island in the BVI. So I will aggressively engage the Health Services Authority board to make sure that they're doing what they are legally mandated to do, which is to bring medical services to all the people of the British Virgin Islands. And that must include Anegada and Nurse Romelia Smith Clinic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vincent, I take a different part. The responsibility to ensure healthcare is provided for people stands with the government. It is the government that provides the funding for the health authority to be able to go. It is the director that stands up at standing finance and battle for the money to get the things done. And it is the government that sometimes cut the budget. It's not that we don't have the ability to get these things, you know. It is the commitment by the government. Don't hide it under anything else. Many of these institutions that you see, they're operating because they don't have capacity in terms of finances to operate. Secondly, if you want to help Anegada, put in the infrastructure for us to accommodate the doctor, to accommodate the equipment, to accommodate the tools, so that when you put the doctor in place, the doctor could actually do the work that he's ordained to do. But to put a doctor in place by April and you don't have the tools up the road as to do anything, revert us back to exactly what it is they're telling now. The airlift must be fixed. Anegada, we deserve better, and better we will get.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Vanterpool or Mrs. Flats Charles, if you care to rebut.
We definitely need an air ambulance. That is no doubt about it. We all know it. We all live it, and it is a reality. We first have to have $600 to open up the airport. And that even ain't starting. When you end up, it's a $3,000 bill you are getting. I put it to you here today. No government that we are ever put in cares about us. Bottom line, they cares about themselves. Now, we say we active, let's stay active. When you elect me, hold me to the fire. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Airlift is definitely a priority for the PVIM government. But I will say the chairman of the BVI HSA board was someone not even living in the BVI. I fought vigorously for that not to happen, but the decision was not mine to make. you're living over in St. Thomas, and when we have a medical crisis, you're not around. You're not here. You don't understand how we feel. I had a child that had to be evacuated as well. So I'm not just talking for talking's sake. I know how every one of you feel in this room. And having someone from outside has been changed now to run the board of BVI Health Services Authority should never have happened. We live in a democratic society that has turned into a dictatorship.
Thank you. We move now to the second question in the second round. Mr. Vanterpool, we will start with you. And your question is, the lack of an appropriate arrival and departure lounge and the management of cargo and passengers at the setting point dock is particularly vexing to the persons and businesses who travel by ferry. How would you tackle this situation? I will repeat that question. The lack of an appropriate arrival and departure lounge and the management of cargo and passengers at the setting point dock is particularly vexing to the persons and businesses who travel by ferry. How would you tackle this situation?
Yes, indeed, it is vexing. But the only solution I see can be done there is the bar on the right if you're facing the water. We have to do some marine studies to see if we have any life in that, and then we could look to reclaim that land to build our terminal. Because it's a shame. Government after government, it's about 20 years now going that we supposed to have had a terminal there and nothing still has not been done. Why would we elect them now thinking they will do it? It will not get done, not under no party system. The independent is the way to go. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanterpool. Mr. Levens, that question will go to you. And it reads, the lack of an appropriate arrival and departure lounge and the management of cargo and passengers at the setting point dock is particularly vexing to the persons and businesses who travel by ferry. How would you tackle this situation?
I think in order for us to tackle this situation, we would have to be practical. And when I say practical is, anytime you make an investment must be able to pay for itself. Now, Anegada needs that particular facility, and we are in an opportune position to be able to put such a facility in place. But in order for us to kind of have that facility in place, we need to start to think along the lines of the little cruise ships. We need to think along the lines of opening the ports. Because once you put down an investment, it must generate a rate of return in order for the investment to be able to pay for itself. So the only way that we can get that done, or we could scale a business like that in a small population, is to enter into a public-private partnership with somebody that has the money and the capital to do it. So the government, or by extension some of the people, and a private entity that has the money could help us. But I want to piggyback on the point that Mr. Vanterpool made, which makes a lot of sense. We need to do an environmental impact assessment because we might need to reclaim certain lands in order for us to be able to do that. And we have to kind of deal with the Anegada Lands Committee for the zoning of commercial property to ensure that individuals in the future don't take the spot, because that is something very important. We have to make sure that the lands are allocated and that they are fit for purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. Honorable Flats Charles, the question is, the lack of an appropriate arrival and departure lounge and the management of cargo and passengers at the setting point dock is particularly vexing to the persons and businesses who travel by ferry. How would you tackle this situation?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. As I mentioned before, I travel to Anegada literally on a weekly basis. So I experience what you experience. Right before those dreaded arrests in April of 2022, I came over to Anegada with the then director of the port to show a plan to the people of Anegada. The Lands Committee chairman was there as well, and there is a proposed plan in place. The port there is not a port of entry. The first thing that has to be done, and that's an easy fix, it needs to be declared a port of entry. There are two container offices sitting at Port Purcell that are to come to Anegada so that we can start that temporary process while the drawings, the EIAs, and those things are being done. I can show you in my telephone how many times I have called the port director. It's from one excuse to the next. They don't have a badge to bring the containers over. And it goes all the way down the line. But better yet, I have already spoken with an investor out of Belgium. Initially, when approached, he wanted only to do investment in Virgin Gorda. But I said to him, no way, Jose, it cannot work. We have to include Anegada. So there is definitely no lack of investors there, public-private partnership. But then again, April 28th happened. That investor is now waiting for the PVIM government to be elected so that he can revisit that investment with persons who he can trust.
Thank you, Honorable Flats Charles. Honorable Wheatley.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The way you described that situation is quite correct. It's vexing. I too have been there when it was raining, or been there with a cargo, or been there with our passengers, and I've seen passengers spend up to an hour sitting there in the open air on that dock. My colleague is actually correct. The first thing we have to do is to declare Setting Point an official port of entry. I cannot see any investor investing in that dock. The concept of rate of return does not apply to Anegada, really. Because if we had that as a prerequisite, you wouldn't have power in Anegada. Because the population does not support a correct rate of return on even your power plant. It has to be subsidized. That dock must be a deliberate government initiative, just like West End. The government must assume that Anegada will not be able to pay for it, and it must be paid for by government. You will only receive a rate of return in over time to come as the population increases and as traffic increases to Anegada. It must be a deliberate government, like a VIP government, to say, you know what, we are going to finally build that dock in Anegada for the people and visitors of Anegada and for your cargo. It cannot be an accidental thing to happen. It must be deliberate. There must be a proper design, go out to tender, do all the studies, and find the money. You can find the money for everything else. Why not Anegada? A VIP government will give that a priority. It has been spoken about for the last probably 30 or 40 years. From Bates Hill time, the part talking about a point of entry down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. At this point of time, I will invite the panelists to give a rebuttal.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was present to that meeting that Honorable Flats Charles spoke about. It was based on selfish motives. Bottom line, it was a Virgin Islands party initiative based on selfish motives. They will not do nothing. They have not done it then. They will not do it now. I thank you.
Honorable Vincent, you speak about the rate of return, but let me give you the point of clarification because you seem not to understand what it is saying. Any ordinary investment that is undertaken, there must be a rate of return to pay for the investment. That is the point I'm making. But in the event, considering scalability of business and how Anegada looks, you have to enter into a public-private partnership because the rate of return would not be realized because we don't have the scalability in terms of enough passengers running through. So I want to make that point of clarification. The mitigation to the investment strategy is actually the public public-private partnership, because with a public-private partnership, you don't have to get a rate of return right away to be able to pay for the investment. They put up the initial investment for you. They allow you to be able to build the actual stuff. And then over the years, once you open up the port of entry, then you'll be able to recover your costs. But I don't want it to be said that rate of return. The rate of return is based on a normal investment strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. Honorable Flats Charles. Oh, Ms. Wheatley.
When persons want a backroom meeting with an investor, it damages any negotiation. This investor that I speak of understands the dynamics of the 9th district and is willing and was willing at the time to take that risk. Realistically, there are many persons who love the 9th district. And it is because of people like you, because when these people come here, the 9th district is famous for our hospitality and we treat them well. And so money for them is not an issue. It is about love of the 9th district. And while some people it's all about money or what they want in return, there are good people out there. Just as you, the audience, are good people and you love Anegada and you love the 9th district, we have people outside that love us so much.
Thank you, Honorable Flats Charles. Honorable Wheatley, if you care to rebut.
For the record, I was never involved with anyone in any discussion concerning development of the Setting Point dock. Never, ever, ever. So don't think I was involved with anybody. Even as a VIP government, I never discussed anything with a VIP government about doing anything on Setting Point. I've won a hall of meetings with this person, that person. I know nothing about it. I wasn't involved or invited to any meeting concerning any dock on Setting Point. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Levens, we are going to start with you for question 3. Repeat. Eco and sports tourism are trending sources of income. Identify one plan that falls under these categories which you think is needed in Anegada, and highlight some of its social, physical, and financial benefits to the island. I will repeat. Eco and sports tourism are trending sources of income. Identify one plan that falls under these categories which you think is needed in Anegada, and highlight some of its social, physical, and financial benefits to the island.
That's a very loaded question. And why I say that question is loaded is because anyone that understands how business does work. Okay, let me attempt to give you an answer. Your ecotourism that you speak about would involve, for me, would involve investment in aquaculture. So like for instance, you notice that we are a community that has water, and there's a good gentleman that has a kite surfing business, or guys who have jet skis. Now I know jet skis is illegal, but that's a point of something that we need to clarify, because it appears to me it is illegal for some people. But the point I'm making is we could get into jet skis as part of tourism. We could get into kiteboarding. We could get into kite surfing, and these things are already in place. Now as it comes to aquaculture, you could look at farming of the shrimps. You could look at farming of conchs. You could even farm algae that gives you some sort of cancer property and be able to use those things. But to answer your question, that question is loaded in the sense of I really don't know how to position a question like that. The only benefits that we would be able to get out of a question like that is we would be able to at least employ people as a benefit. The social benefit would come, I guess, by having the visitors come in and seeing what we've done in terms of aquaculture and agriculture. But that question is too broad of a question for me to be able to articulate it. So I will stand down on that question.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. Honorable Flatstars, I will repeat the question for you. Eco and sports tourism are trending sources of income. Identify one plan that falls under these categories which you think is needed in Anegada, and highlight some of its social, physical, and financial benefits to the island.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The PVIM government has already started working. Our team is in contact with a team at a university in Florida who knows the technology to create a conch farm. You know that conch is a delicacy. It is scarce in the Virgin Islands right now. But it goes back to you, the people. We will facilitate the formation of the Anegada Investment Group, where you, the Anegadians, will get involved in a business venture such as this, with the assistance initially of the government via a subsidy. This will generate income. It will also create the possibility of the export of conch. As it relates to jet skis, I want to say that I love the idea of jet skis. It creates business. They are illegal. The two operators now were grandfathered in when it became illegal because they were already in business when that law was passed to ban the jet skis. And from a social perspective, it creates a climate where you have young persons learning this technology and you keep them off the streets. They're making money because every restaurant you go into wants conch. And we need to utilize that. We're not taking away from the conch divers and so forth. Because what happens is that they start in a tank, and then the process, and I can explain it a lot later after, then they are put out into the ocean. So there'll be still room for the traditional conch diving. This has worked in Florida, and it can work in Anegada for the benefit of Anegadians.
Thank you. Honorable Wheatley.
I would like to say that I really appreciate this question, and I really wish there were more school children here to appreciate my answer. One of the things I like about Anegada is its rich history, but I don't think it's used enough. You have like the Gildersleeve Old House, Fountain Well, the Duck Pond, the old ceremonial site, conch shell mounds, both land and sea, the Proctor Walls over there. There's so many historical places in Anegada that you can do walking tours done by Anegadians, because you know Anegada better than anybody else. This would not only enhance the Anegadians' knowledge of the place, but all the visitors also could get to understand how Anegada is so different. Talk about the Caliche quarry, the small brack wells. I could go on and on with so much there is to see. All the orchids that are endemic to Anegada. I was coming here for years before I knew about certain things about Anegada, because no one is doing these eco tours. You can walk on these tours. And then for another activity, Anegada is flat. Why is there more bicycling here? Persons who come from all over the world, just like you have Lobster Fest, you could have bicycle fest there. The persons right or wrong, there used to be a bicycle thing once before. Let's get bicycling. It's healthy, and persons get to explore your island, and you can combine the two. I went to a beautiful duck pond. I call it a secret pond because you drive by it nearly every day. Ron took me in the store. I was just blown, absolutely blown away. And I hope he develops this and teaches others about how beautiful and historic and educational Anegada can be for us, for all of us, and for our visitors. Excellent question. I'm glad you brought it, because Anegada should remain as pristine as we can keep it, while still having the people develop and make money. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. Mr. Vanderpool?
Yeah. Yes. What I would like to see happen is in the line of water sports. where we can have our old-fashioned boats sailing. We could have races coming in there where we'll enhance, and our youngsters, both men and women, will learn new skills. This can make a spin-off in a new breed of local captains, which are so much needed. The landscape of our tourism market has been changed over the years. Our black local captains has been phased out, and we need to make a return. I thank you.
Thank you. At this point of time, we will open the floor for rebuttals.
I don't know if this is much of a rebuttal, but I guess trying to understand the depth of the question and trying to limit it to Anegada, I would say if we look at what we have the flamingos, we have the iguanas, we have, what else do we have? We have the iguanas, we have the flamingos. No, but we have to talk about practicality. If we have those things in place, the only economic benefit I can see with them is to do the tours via the taxi people and the impact of people being aware and being educated. Now, when we come to sports tourism, I want to accept Honorable Vincent's point. I think a bicycle track is something that we could do, and I think that that's something that actually is practical. And if something is practical, Mr. Weekly, then it makes sense that's something we should carry up the court.
Thank you. Sports tourism. I remember many years ago we had something called Kite Jam, where hundreds of persons descended on Anegada. I believe that that is something that our young people in Anegada, maybe some of them are already learning to kiteboard, and international tournaments, kiting is important. Going back to the conch farm, one of the plans is to have a visitor center as well to teach about the conch, whether it's local, whether it's visitors. Inclusive in that, you will have shops as well where persons can sell jewelry made from conch shells. As a matter of fact, my earrings are made by an Anegadian, Mrs. Bratwith. And so we have a lot of talent in Anegada, and I think that we need to utilize the talent that we have here on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Rebuttal.
I still will stick with this sailing because it is a lot of money to be made. And not only the money aspect of it, it will be bringing back a skill that we once had about 100 years ago and is not present here among us. It could even encourage some of our young people to go into the market of owning our boats. It is time for us to take control of our industry. The tourism industry is much bigger than just restaurants. Those boats is where the money at. It is upward to $20,000, $30,000 to be on that a week. Why we must zero down ourselves to just cooking a plate of food? Let's elevate ourselves and move forward, people. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things I think we could do that we started doing some years ago is to declare that area where the conch shell mounds and where all the shipwrecks are. Because they're all in one basic area. Declare like a national parks, there you can charge people to visit the wrecks and so forth. And you could train our people to dive and to even do diving tours down there with persons. I think right now you can go to the conch shell mounds and basically just a boat captain would make any money. Well, if we create like a national parks where that money made there goes directly back to the people of Anegada, I think that's something actually worth exploring. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move into round 3. The questions in this section were questions that were emailed or taken from the audience. We thank you for submitting your questions. Also, our panelists, you are given 1 minute to answer these questions. I'm sorry, 2 minutes to answer these questions and then 1 minute rebuttal. Honorable Flatstraws, we start with you. And the first question pertains to the basic infrastructure, which one of our members of the audience has deemed to be lacking. So the question is, monies allocated for the building of the roads, of the back road in Anegada was reportedly diverted to other projects. How would you address, firstly, the reallocation of funds, and secondly, the completion of projects for which these funds were originally allocated? I will repeat the question. Basic infrastructure in Anegada is lacking. Monies allocated for the building of the back road in Anegada, this is the correct road, clarity, was reportedly diverted to other projects. How would you firstly address the reallocation of the funds, and secondly, the completion of projects for which these funds were originally allocated?
Thank you very much. As I mentioned before, 21 projects were put on the board with 0 for the 9th district. The PVIM government, under the able leadership of Honorable Ronnie W. Skelton as the Minister of Finance, who's a proven finance minister, we will ensure that there is a reallocation of the funds. Now that back road has a lot of history, I know all about it. I'm surprised that you said the back road going to correct. I don't think you said that for me. You said that probably for the edification of other persons in the room. However, it must be completed. Once the funds are reallocated, now there are persons that had contracts for those projects. From a legal standpoint, we need to find out what has to be done. Unfortunately, there's one person, I believe, that has passed that had a contract. How do we deal with something like that? That has to go to the Attorney General Chambers. I don't have all the details, but I am saying to you that this is long past due, and the PVIM government will ensure that that is done. Too many times we start projects and they're never finished. And I can tell you, when I worked at the tourist board, they would unfortunately wait until coming close to Lobster Fest to see if we would get some of this road paved. From government to government, I cannot tell you how many times I have addressed this issue. I can go back in my phone with emails and WhatsApp messages to the relevant authorities. Do they really care? We must get those district councils in place and the island councils so that we have funds to deal with the things that we need to deal with. Let's put our mind to it. We can do it as a people.
Thank you, Honorable Flatstraws. Honorable Wheatley, the question. Would you care for me to repeat the question? Basic infrastructure is lacking in Anegada. Monies allocated for the building of the back road in Anegada was reportedly diverted to other projects. How would you address, firstly, the reallocation of the funds, and secondly, the completion of projects for which these funds were originally allocated?
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate thing that I heard about. I heard the money actually went from Anegada Roads to a Rotong project. And that's why I've advocated many times that there should be a line item for the sister islands, so this wouldn't happen again. We've identified all the contracts and all the contractors who are assigned contracts to the road. They've been identified, and that project will happen. For any community to develop, your basic infrastructure must be put in place. The expansion of water is something I would definitely look at. The expansion of power and alternative power, the projects are already underway. And the expansion of roads. Under my tenure, we did about 3 roads in the village. There are others to be done. Anegada will only develop as infrastructure is expanded and developed. I'm fully committed, as I have already started. I will continue the work that I started with these projects. The reallocation of the funding is not the biggest issue. I think it's a matter of time and getting things done. But that will happen. That back road will happen. I say we found the contractors already, and we will go and get that done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderpool, would you like me to repeat the question?
No. I don't know if that was reallocated, but to my knowledge, it was a political initiative to turn the direction of elections in the favor of parties. It was done then and they're still doing it now. A new budget will have to be passed in order to get that done. But it always has been something doing to determine how the elections will go in favor of particular parties. That same project we are talking about, it was started. And the Sunday before elections, that was the day the last badge came in. It is about 12 years now, and it's still where it is then to this day. I thank you.
Mr. Levins, would you care to me to repeat the question? Yeah. Okay. Basic infrastructure is lacking in Anegada. Monies allocated for the building of the back road in Anegada was reportedly diverted to other projects. How would you address, firstly, the reallocation of funds, and secondly, the completion of projects for which these funds were originally allocated?
Well, the first piece of the question would assume that somebody in government, in order for you to reallocate, it means to say it was allocated for. So I would assume that role. But what I would say is this. Anegada is a developing country, and this is the root of the problem that Anegada have. Past and previous governments, the problem that we have is that in order for our economy to grow, government have to commit to give us the basic infrastructure. Every government come in with the same talk and conversation, what they're going to do, what they're going to say, and we're still in the same position that we're in. You have, I think it's Anne's Cottages, you have Keel Point, you have Anegada Beach Club, and you have, I think, Dean's Villas. You have entities, entrepreneurs that invest their money, and all they're asking us as to do as a government is to ensure that you provide the basic amenities as for them. This is why I got to go back to the district council, because, ladies and gentlemen, if we had the council, we would have done already proposed this. So a line item being created don't mean nothing, because they had a line item for the thing and they take the people the money and they divert it. It's not the line item is the problem. It's the problem is government committing to do the work for any guardians. That's all the problem is.
Okay, at this point of time, we will have the rebuttal.
I will remind a kind gentleman it was the NDP government who stopped that project. Thank you.
Anyone?
The project was started with an NDP government. Like I rightfully said, contracts was given out to change the outcome of the elections. The Sunday before elections, the badge stopped running and it still remained the same. We put in a VIP government, promised to fix it too, and it's still the same. Ladies and gentlemen, no party has no intentions of fixing it, no matter where they are. Your only hope is our independent candidate in your servant, Vernon Vanderpool. Put your X next to the crown, and we will see what getting done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of order though, Honorable Weekly, is an NDP government that put it to a halt. And I would have to, that's subject to confirmation from me, but I would say this. You've been in power for 4 years, and you sitting down at this table now talking about woulda, coulda, and shoulda. 4 years you've been in power. 4 years your government been at the helms. And what happened to the road conversation? While my government stop it, if your government take the initiative to back up Anegada people, then we got the ball going up the court. But for you to sit here today and say that NDP government stop it, in which your facts may be correct, but I throw it back at you. You have a responsibility as the district representative to look out for the interests of Anegada. This is the problem that we have in. We're playing politics. So to try it on the NDP government does not take it off for you. You are the district rep.
Mr.
You
Levin,
are the district
please,
rep. Put your house in
revert
order.
your question to the rebuttal of the allocation of these funds. Thank you. Yes, but you're going on about what they did. You need to keep it, we're still keeping it within the range of the question. Yeah. I understand.
No, if he makes a point, I have the right to rebut the point. You can't say how to coin my rebuttal.
We are trying to keep the questions based on the topic, okay? And
Well,
I would like to encourage you
I understand,
to
Madam
stay
Moderator.
on point.
I understand the standpoint.
Thank you.
Then you should have stopped the moderation long time ago, because some people don't run off and ain't even answer the question.
Interesting. Honorable Flats, Charles.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. A line item can still be reallocated. It is my hope that I won't have to be begging and groveling, and the only thing I haven't done is kiss persons' feet who are in positions of authority to have gotten this road done. We must care and have the will to do it. We have to get those island administrations in place where funds are placed within those councils, so that we, the people of Anegada, the people of Vojangorda, that we are able to spend our money. We know the needs of our island. We know the needs of our community and our district. And who best to make the decisions but the persons who are on these islands, sitting on these councils. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to remind our panelists that the first bell is to let you know that you have 1 minute. Some people are stopping actually with the first bell for in their response to their questions. So that is the reminder that you have 1 more minute to go, okay? Continuing with our questions from the audience. This question is a little bit winded. And it will go to Honorable Wheatley first. Why in the 21st century is there a school with no home economics, technical drawing, clothing and textile, and even a mechanical program? Why does Anegada not have a permanent music and physical education teacher? How would you work to increase the extracurricular activities for the youth of Anegada? I can repeat that question. Why in the 21st century is there a school with no home economics, technical drawing, clothing and textile, and even a mechanical program? Why does Anegada not have a permanent music and physical education teacher? And how would you work to increase the extracurricular activities for the youth of Anegada?
As a district representative and not a minister, it would be very difficult for me to answer those questions. But I do know the meeting I had there some Mondays ago, the issue came up of creating further space to offer these things. I cannot say I know exactly the reason why, but I do believe with the use of technology, some of these things can happen. Why is currently not happening? Again, I really cannot say. I will have to explore. Like I say, I think with technology, with telelearning and so forth, some of these things might be practical. Again, my friend likes talking about scalability. It might be an issue of, can I afford to bring a teacher to Anegada to just teach 2 students, or should I keep that teacher someplace else? I believe the reason why it's not happening are practical and maybe financial reasons. That's just me really guessing. But our students should be offered every single opportunity to get as wide exposure as possible, because we don't really know what they will catch on to. Extracurricular, we did fix the basketball court, and we did put a playground in. I did do field trips with the children to Vojingara and to Guana Island. Yes, children of Anegada need more sports, they need more extracurricular. Music is happening once a week out of Vojingara. Once we get a transport fixed between Vojingara and Anegada, we can and we will add more government services to Anegada. What currently exists is unacceptable. So I fully agree with you. But transportation is one and maybe finance maybe the other. Once we fix our transportation problem, just like with health, once you fix the Medivac, a lot of other things are going to fall in place. You fix the connection between Anegada and Vojingara, government services all of a sudden can increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. Mr. Vanderpool, the question is, why in the 21st century is there a school with no home economics, technical drawing, clothing, and textile, and even a mechanical program? Why does Anegada not have a permanent music and physical education teachers? And how would you work to increase the extracurricular activities for the youth of Anegada?
Thank you. I'm quite sure we have persons that are interested in giving us those type of services that we need. In our community here, we have mechanics, we have excellent cooks, and all such things. And some of them was even willing to put up some of their time to make sure our young people learn to read properly. But sometimes our problem is stemming from the educational system itself. We had always been treated like a bastard child. And it's something that continually going on year in and year out. And it's gone down for decades. And it's high time that at least, I know we might not be able to get everything one time, but our students have to have the same opportunities like all the other students throughout the whole entire Virgin Islands. I will start to see if I could get some of those needed things that our students can have some extra skills, and who knows, go on to be owning their own businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Mr. Levins, the question is, why in the 21st century is there a school with no home economics, technical drawing, clothing and textile, and even a mechanical program? Why does Anegada not have a permanent music and physical education teacher? And what would you do to increase the extracurricular activities for the youth of Anegada?
Well, the list that you list out, things have to be practical. You can't bring a teacher for every sector of what a child wants. What I would recommend to you is that if a child has a keen interest, when I was a boy, I had a keen interest in running track. And every Friday, the government would pay for me to go to Tortola. They would put me up and they would house me. If you have children in the Anegada school that wants to go and develop a particular skill, because it's Anegada and it's not 100 children, put that child on a plane and let that child go with his parents and let that child be able to actually develop his skill. But you have to be practical. The only way that we could get youths in power is for us to have some sort of system in place for youth empowerment. There's been a lot of private and partnerships with YEP, but again, everything comes down to scalability. And that's one of the disadvantages that Anegada has. Anegada don't have the population. That's why Anegada depend on tourism, because tourism brings in the people, and it allows you to have the frequency to turn around and make the money. But ask yourself this: if we had to depend on the local population to support our businesses, how would we get it do? And you have to apply that same concept when you apply the question that you're asking me. The government just can't up and put a sector for food, a sector for mechanic, a sector, and the school only gotten 50 people. So what we need to do is maybe have an intermodal transportation system that push the children out to either Tortola or to Vojingada and allow them to be able to at least have that level of exposure. That's the best I see that we could do. But that question is, that question is very difficult to answer, because it comes down to scalability. It really does come down to scalability, not that we don't want to do it for any guardians, but you have to do something that is practicable and achievable. And for us to go have 8 teachers to just teach X among the students is not economically viable.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. Honorable Flax Charles, would you care for me to repeat?
Thank you.
Why in the 21st century is there a school with no home economics, technical drawing, clothing and textile, and even a mechanical program? Why does Anegada not have a permanent music and physical education teachers? How would you work to increase the extracurricular activities for the youth of Anegada?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The will of those in authority have to be there. With a PVIM government, we have an expert in education and extracurricular activities in the name of Mr. Stacy Buddha Mehta. We have the expertise, we don't have to go and look for it. I believe that music should be taught every day. I believe that there should be physical education every day. I believe that a guidance counselor should be here every day. Let me ask the Anegada audience a question. Do you not pay taxes? Because I'm not understanding. I can understand all these things about scalability and population. But why is it that funds were taken from Anegada to do something on Tortola? So it comes to be a reasonable thing that we have to balance how the funding is done. There's online learning. I have gone online learning to play the piano. And so while there are certain things that you cannot do online, that is the first step. While a class in music is being taught in Tortola, it can be live streamed to Anegada, because that's what the technology is there for. Extracurricular activities. I've submitted a proposal for a steel pan program. Sometimes I feel so shame when I see the kids here in Anegada who play, because I've spoken to them about the program. I'm still waiting on the funding. They play those steel pans with all their hearts, but the steel pans need tuning. And just to get a couple of dollars to tune some pans, it sits on the shelf.
Thank you, Honorable Flax Charles. At this point of time,
So it's my turn now to turn the question around and ask the people of Anegada, why aren't there any guardians teaching in these schools these subjects? You see, there must be a point in time, and it's not a quick fix or immediate fix, but a long-term goal must be our people serving our people. If you come to Virgin-Gorda, you'll find a doctor in a clinic who went to school on Virgin-Gorda, who went away, spent about 15 years studying medicine, who's now back on Virgin-Gorda, and she comes to Anegada also. Being a doctor, we have to get to a point where we are training our people to serve our people. I said it a while ago, it cannot always be about money. We could never pay you what you're paid abroad, but it's something called giving back, there's something called sacrifice. There's something called we taking care of we for we. We have to build this country by ourselves, for ourselves. Anegada cannot always be looking to somebody to send somebody here to help us. We have to start getting more self-reliant and more self-independent. I want to see the day when we have all Anegada teachers teaching at the Anegada school. It won't happen overnight, but it can happen.
thank you, Honorable.
But I'm going to piggyback on that because, Mr. Weekly, it just comes down to issuing the scholarships. That's where the problem of the issue is. And I go back to the point that Honorable Flax made earlier. Why did we take out of the institution when the VAL and the SAL of each school graduate that they don't get scholarship? When you do that, you retard the growth of Anegada. At least 2 children would have graduated every year that would have been able to go away and get a full scholarship and be able to come back and contribute. But again, it goes back to the way that we do things. But let's be real. It's not that we put in a price on it. We're operating in a real world. And in a real world, yes, why you don't put money as an objective in a real world, you have to be practical in the thing that you're saying. So all of these stuff about doing those things, the only way to get that done is to have someone like the YEP Center come in and build an empowerment center and then get volunteers through the community as well as Tortola to come up to Anegada and then allow them to be able to do all of the activities.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. Anyone else to rebut?
Thank you. Is there not a curriculum for all of the children throughout the territory? There has to be a standard across the board. I've spoken with one of the guidance counselors. They're willing to come at least 3 days, because the boat comes 3 days. When we get to the 5, as we intend to, or to the 7, we need to put plans in place for that. YEP is coming because Stacy Budamata is coming with the PVIM government. And I want to implore all Anegadians, if you're interested in any particular career, please reach out to me. There's so many opportunities out there. And I, as you know, am always willing to listen to you and to hear from you and to help to make these things become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Albert.
I am a recipient of scholarships. That program has long been dead. That program, if reinstated, we can have well-trained men and women coming back home to serve our islands. Returning back home in the late 80s, I was offered a job in Tortola. I tell them, no way, no how. I went overseas to get my education to serve my island, Anegada. You can keep your job until when you could create one for me here, then my service you could have. A couple years later, they opened up the Public Works Department, and I had it for 26 years, 2 weeks. We need to reinstate that scholarships. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Okay, we move on to the next question. Would you like a break at this point of time? Okay, so we will take our final question. And this question pertains to the seniors program in Anegada. There was previously a seniors program here in Anegada. Currently, there is no program. What would you do to address this? We go with Mr. Vanderpool.
Yes, we did have a program, and I think it was a very good program. It was the only program we had for our seniors where they could have come, have lunch with their peers, play bingos, and for some reason, our Tortola people see it fit to kill it dead. Other party get in, they did not revive it, and this is where we are today. Our senior citizens are treated like trash when we throw it in the garbage bin. And we need to get back where we have that love for our seniors. We took care of our mother, and she was a virtuous woman. And a matter of fact, that program, they stopped sending food home to her. when she had 14 children paying taxes into the system. That is the type of treatment we get from the party system, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Mr. Levens, would you care to have the question repeated?
No. I think the answer to that question is basically straightforward. We need to put back the program. But what I would add is, why do we need the government to take care of our seniors when all of us is a community together? We have a lot of businesses. Why don't we put an initiative in place and allow every business every other month to host the seniors? This is our country. Y'all don't realize yet that if you're sitting down waiting on government to do things for you, you ain't gonna get it done. So I think, I'll put the question back to the floor. I think, Anegada, we could do a little better. We could take care of ourselves, and we should learn to be able to do that, because there's a senior program that was in place, and the senior program gone. So why nobody and take up the mantle to carry it? That's the question I would have. Why nobody in the community who claim to say they love the seniors so much don't try to pilot the program? Why the businesses don't come together and try to pilot the program? And I'm saying this to you because we have to get away from this mentality. The function of a government is to create the opportunity for you, you know. The function of the government is not to feed you. And a lot of people have this mix-up. This is why we're in the political turmoil that we're in right now. Because people vote based on what you could give me, not upon the opportunities that have been created. So in our senior program, yes, government dropped the ball. Government need to make sure that the people that chart the future for us are taken care of. But they failing to do that. I think we have a duty of care to each other as Anegadians to carry the ball of the court also.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. Honorable Flats Charles.
Thank you so much. Our seniors are very precious to us. Today we have a senior in Virgin Gorda that has made 100 years old. And I want to say happy birthday to Mrs. Floricia George. We must reinstate the program, whether it be a public-private partnership or a public sole public. I will say this, the program worked. It is working in other areas in Tortola. My at-large team has visited centers in Tortola. At one point, the seniors used this building, and we know that the hurricanes damaged this building. Thanks to funding from PAHO, we were able to rebuild. And look at this beautiful building. I do agree that we must work as a community. And so we will put in place, with the help of the Anegadians and the Virgin Gordians, 2 action committees. Anegada Action Committee, Virgin Gorda Action Committee, so that we are able to assist in initiatives such as this. And we are very committed to ensuring that the seniors are well taken care of. We need to put up something in place as well where we are able to record their lives. I know Ms. Romelia spoke to me about her memoirs, and those are things that are precious to us. If we don't get them, we lose them when they pass. And so we as a people, we have to know where we came from, and we have to get that information from the seniors. So let's treat them with tender love and care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Flats Charles. Honorable Vincent Wheatley. The question is, there was previously a seniors program in Anegada. Currently, there is none. What would you do to address this?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I remember that program very, very well, because I call it Seniors My Golden Gems. In fact, that's the reason why I was late today, because Ms. Floricia George made 100 years today, and I had to go to church with her, because she's a good friend. Since that program has stopped, I really feel bad for the seniors. And just for the record, the program was stopped by government and NDP government, just like the scholarships that we reinstated. The only reason that program has not restarted under VIP government is because of COVID-19. COVID did happen. We had to divert about $70 million for the health to take care of persons. That money was what the program was coming from. COVID is kind of behind us now. Money's been allocated to the Money Services Act to start that program back. We must have a program back, and the government should do it. These persons have given up their time and their experience to build this country. I see nothing wrong with us bringing this program back and the government paying for it. The money is there to do it. Let's take care of our gems. Let's record their stories. I agree. Let's record their stories for posterity. But let us get that program back, and we are committed to doing that, and the money has been allocated to get that program started already. I go to the seniors all the time. I'm in the houses every single day and every single week. They miss coming together and sharing their old stories. In the 9th district, there are probably about 5 persons left who are around the 90s or 100s now. They miss each other. They want to be with each other, spending time. Only them have their stories. Only them can share their stories from that period in which they have lived. So I want to see that program back, and I'll ensure that program comes back. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. At this point in time, any other panelists would like to rebut?
No, I would like to rebut because I noticed my colleague is saying consistently NDP. And I want to make it clear, because while NDP may stop it, you are here proposing for this plan. You've been in power 2 years after COVID. So it does amaze me how the blame game does be played. But you, again, are the minister for the 9th district. Why didn't you put the people them program back in place? Why didn't you put the people program back in place? You sitting down here telling the people them about which government put it out? Tell me about which government put it back. You sit down here as the district representative, my good friend, and my good friend is 2 years after, and the senior program ain't back in place. So what story you coming to tell the people? That NDP put it out, but VIP and a unity government was in, and nobody ain't put it back in. Nobody ain't proposed for it to go back in. So this is where the issue is. The issue is for us to be able to say which government take it out and be contented with that. But we can't entertain and engage that kind of behavior no more.
Thank you. Mr. Levins? Mr. Wheatley?
The only reason the program hasn't started because the building was handed over last month. We couldn't use the building. That's the only reason. The money is there for the program. We didn't have the building. The building is here now. The money is there. We're going to get it done. Thank you.
Mr. Vanderpool?
It was completed about a year ago. Again, it is a political gimmick. The government was dissolved a couple weeks ago when it was handed over. It could have been handed over prior. I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Ms. Flats, Charles?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Again, the will of those in authority who sign at the dotted line is invisible. I attended many meetings in this building in recent months, so I must agree with Mr. Vanderpool that the building was ready to go, and I know that there are things with handing over, but the building was being used for several meetings. But let us focus on the seniors and make them a priority. So as the Anegada community and the Virgin Gorda community, because we don't have a program over there as well, let us work together to ensure that it becomes a reality for our seniors. And we can start doing that tomorrow. What do you say, Anegada? All right. We can start discussions tomorrow with social development, who is in charge of the building.
Thank you, Honorable Flats, Charles. Okay, we have just time for one more question, and then we have your closing remarks. Okay. Mr. Levins, you will start first this time. Okay. The question is, if you received a large grant to use for the Anegada community in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why? I shall repeat. If you received a large grant to use for the Anegada community in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
I would upgrade my airports and my ports. And why I would do that is because Anegada is a tourism destination. Everybody on Anegada lives off the tourists. So it is imperative that we facilitate movement of people, because by facilitating movement of people, the people of Anegada benefit, and you turn the wheels of the economy. Because once you start to get the movement of people, look what happened. You have a guy that buy a bus. You have a guy that have to pay insurance. You have a person that has to hire someone. You have someone who have to rent the apartment. And what you start to do is you start to turn the wheels of the economy. So I would invest in actually fixing our airport. And in fixing the airport, what I would do also is I would make sure that I get in bed with companies like Cape Air and our local companies to provide direct access, because Vojangada has that. And that is why I mentioned the intermodal port. I would also open up our port of entry and put down the facility that we're here talking about. Because once we put down that facility now and we open up the port of entry, when the cruise ships them come in now, the cruise ships them could come into Anegada. We clearing the cruise ship. We got the revenues now moving from the people to immigration and customs. And now we have taxi men that will be able now to start to move people in large numbers and would be able now to scale their business and to buy other taxis and to move. So my focus would be on transportation, because tourism is key to Anegada, and what we will do by doing that now is that now would allow us to propel the other industries.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. Honorable Flats Charles, if you received a large grant to use for the Anegada community in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
Thank you. Assuming that this grant is about $10–20 million, I may be being ambitious, but I think we need to have a holistic approach. I spoke about the steel pan program. That's only about $50,000. We need to get those back roads fixed. Those need to be done. The airport and seaport definitely will have to be on the list. We will also create that home economic lab at the school, subsidize the ferry services on the days when there's no ferry, so Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And these are things that will holistically help a wide variety of people at the same time. And it might seem ambitious, but you didn't give me a figure. So I assume that that grant is in the millions of dollars. And also to improve our sports facilities here in Anegada as well. We can put in a 200-meter track and have trainers. There are trainers in Vojangada that are willing to come here to work with our track and field athletes in Anegada. And so once that money is up in that millions of dollars, the PVIM government can work wonders with that grant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Flats.
Is it one thing or a bunch of things you can do? I wasn't clear.
I will repeat the question for
Please,
you.
yeah.
If you received a large grant to use for Anegada community in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
I have to agree with my colleague Hoy over there. Transportation. Transportation will provide the impetus for a lot of things to happen. If you get a better connection to Anegada, you can bring more government services, you can bring more public services. But the key thing is to get bodies underground in Anegada, thus creating an economic effect here on Anegada. Is the key thing. Numbers drive commerce. We also have transportation. It also creates the medical situation where you can get persons out of here, or even persons into here to seek medical attention. Because once you can develop medical tourism here, getting people to and from the island becomes critical. So I fully agree with Coy on that one. The only challenge you would have to make sure about don't come and shut it down. But I can't call no government name. But transportation is a key thing to getting persons to and from Anegada. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. Mr. Vanterpool, would you like me to repeat the question?
No,
Okay.
I'm good. First and foremost, my first thing I will tackle is our health situation, ladies and gentlemen. Secondly, will be education. Thirdly, our infrastructure. These are things been plaguing us for the last 100 years. We got up here, we rant and rage, and now we have a grant to fix it, and we're talking about this and that. We need to be fixed in our health. All of us going to suffer. Don't care what happened. If I fall and break a foot, my dear friend nurse, I don't think she might even want to deal with it. The fracture might be broken in 5 and 6 places. So we need to get our health fixed. We need our education. Without an educated person, we cannot have a healthy one. So those are the two most focused things in any growing society. And then our infrastructure will come along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vanterpool. At this point of time, if anyone cares to rebut.
I just wanted to know what Mr. Vincent mumbled, but I didn't get to pick it up. I didn't get to pick it up, Mr. Vincent. I didn't get to pick it up. It looked like I'm going to watch the tape and call him later.
Light humor, thank you. Okay, at this point of time, we will invite our distinguished panelists to give their closing remarks. We will start first with you. We'll start with the lady, Honorable Flax Charles.
Thank you so much. How much time do I have?
1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. I want to say a hearty thank you to the organizers. And Janai, Carl, I appreciate you. I'd give you a hard time, you know. But I will tell you in a couple of years, this young man is very ambitious, and we have to applaud him and the team for doing such a great job with this debate. Madam Moderator, did Ms. De Freitas give you a few tips? You were excellent. You were excellent. I know that you can hold your own, but for all the debates that I've seen, the women have taken control and have handled themselves extremely well. Anegada, on the 20th of April and on the 24th, I, Shireen Flax Charles, ask you to give me your vote, along with my team, Ronnie W. Skelton, Ingrid Moses Scatliff, Shayna Smith Archer, and Stacy Buddha Mater. We are committed to working with you. I have a proven track record of working for Anegada and by extension Virgin Gorda and the territory. You know, I've been told we don't want to hear Virgin Gorda and Anegada out of your mouth. However, that can never happen until the Lord says it's time for you to come home. So thank you once again. I love you, Anegada. And we'll see you at the polls. Look for the arrow pointing up. Progressive Virgin Islands Movement. Thank you so much.
There seemed to be a little logistic error just now. Mr. Paul was supposed to have given a little alert warning, which he forgot. So what has happened now is he's going to allow everybody 2 minutes because of that. Okay? Yes. So, sorry? Just a couple seconds, but we allow the others to have that. Mr. Wheatley.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being here this afternoon. It will certainly be a pleasure. It was a pleasure being here. and sharing this platform with my colleagues here. You've heard us. You've seen the differences in our approach, our answers. The choice is now yours to determine from what you have heard which representative here with which team best matches your goals, your aspirations, your dreams for you, for your family, for Anegada, and for the territory as a whole. I ask you to go back and re-look at the tape if you must. And you must come to only one conclusion. The team you put your confidence in 4 years ago is still the best team to take this country forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wheatley. Mr. Vanterpool.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being such a nice audience. We have reported, you will decide. It is clear no party have ever got it done, and they will not get it done now. When you go to the polls, look for Vernon Vanterpool, the crown, put your shade in that overall, and go further. When you move over to the at-large candidate, look for Davies, shade that number 2 on the ballot. Come down, you go to number 16, Karen Vanterpool, lion wearing the crown, shade that. And you could do what you want with the other 2, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanterpool. Mr. Levens.
I would just like to say thank you to the organizers.
Excuse me. Can we have the audience please give Mr. Levens the quiet that he deserves? Thank you.
I would just like to say to the listening audience here and online, thank you all for organizing this debate. Janoi, I saw your passion and I saw what you have done on Virgin Gorda. And I think this kind of discussion is what is needed. We need intellectual conversation to stimulate our minds. And as Mr. Vincent spoke about rewinding, I as a man like to rewind too because I like to check back my mistakes. And the best hope for this country right now is the NDP government. And I want you to check your statistics. Look when NDP government was in place, how the economy had looked. And Mr. Vincent is my friend, you know, but he's a brave man. Because, Mr. Vincent, the track record of your government has shown itself. Mr. Vincent, the track record of your government has shown itself. Mr. Vincent, we're going into the House tomorrow. Never in the history of the British Virgin Islands has the House been dissolved. And now we're going back to the House to go sort out some problems that need to be sorted out. But anyway, I want to tell you that as an Anegadian and as a youngster, don't measure the man by the age that he has, but measure the man based on the experience and the passion that he has to position the country in the direction. And I'm telling you that Iko Elevons is that particular man. And I know Anegada that I could bat with any one of them. I could bat on the international stage and I could bat on the regional stage. And I am asking you on election day to put Anegada in the House of Assembly. And by extension, put in our at-large candidates, Renard Estridge, Alan O'Neill, Lana Smith, who should be in the crowd with us, and Kedrick Pickering. But I'm telling y'all, put your X for Levons on election day. Affect the change that you want to see. I will leave you with this. Would you want to be in the situation that you're in right now for another 4 years?
Thank you, Mr. Levens. And that brings an end to our debate. I will now invite Mr. Cole to give his remarks. It has been my pleasure to moderate. Thank you very much.
Okay, finally, we'll just say a great thank yous to everybody that made this possible, or 2 debates, part 1 and part 2. We would like to thank Sean's Professional Services. We would like to thank Creative Inc. We would like to thank Miss Christina Yates, QKC Rentals for their sound system. We also thank JTV. For the Anegada part 2 of the debate, we thank Kelly Tours as our primary sponsor and his team. Keep Exquisite Decor. We have DJ Richie and Levels Entertainment. Thank you all so much for helping us out. We thank our great moderators, Mr. Damian Grange and Ms. Gatoni Francis. We thank our panel of candidates. Thank you so much for accepting and participating in this upful level of democracy. We also would want to thank our members of this year's debate planning committee. They all know who they are, and our candidates as well know who they are. And we will also, and finally, like to thank you, the audience, both streaming live and in person, for participating in this year's or this season's political candidacy debate. Thank you so much. Have a good day.